A 9-year-old girl and her grandfather set off on what should have been a routine camping trip, but they never returned home. For 7 torturous years, the girl's mother endured sleepless nights, while authorities hit dead end after dead end. But then, after a fierce storm, a maintenance worker at Lake Beressa in California spots their old trailer lodged in the massive spillway of the dam. A breakthrough that would turn this cold case into every parent's worst fear. The nightmare always came at the same hour. Maurice Langford jolted awake, her heart pounding against her ribs as the familiar images faded. Lily's blonde hair catching sunlight, her father's weathered hands helping her into the camper. Both of them waving goodbye. The red digits on her bedside clock glowed 4:45 a.m. She sat up in the darkness of her Ashland bedroom, pushing damp hair from her forehead. 7 years since that camping trip, and still the dreams came with merciless regularity. Maurice wrapped her arms around her knees, trying to shake off the phantom sensation of her 9-year-old daughter's last hug. The sharp knock at her front door made her jump. At this hour, another knock, more insistent, followed by a muffled voice calling her name. Mrs. Langford, Maurice Langford. She grabbed her nightgown from the chair, wrapping it tightly around herself as she padded to the front door. Through the peephole, she saw 2 figures under her porch, light one in a dark suit, the other in a sheriff's uniform. Maurice's hands trembled as she undid the lock's agent. Jonah Kessler stood on her doorstep, his FBI badge already out. Beside him, Sheriff Andrea Brody shifted her weight, her expression grim in the pre-dawn darkness. "I'm sorry to wake you, Mrs. Langford," Agent Kessler said. His voice carried the weight of someone delivering difficult news. "We've been trying to reach you for the past hour. My phone." Maurice glanced toward the kitchen where she'd left her mobile. "I put it on silent last night, I'm sorry." "What's happened?" The 2 officers exchanged glances. Sheriff Brody stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We found your father's camper." The words didn't make sense. Maurice blinked, certain she'd misheard. His camper. But that's where at Monticello Dam, Agent Kessler said. "In the glory hole spillway." In the what? Maurice's mind struggled to process the information. The glory hole spillway at Monticello Dam was that massive circular drain she'd seen in photographs, a concrete funnel designed to handle overflow water. "I don't understand. How could a camper be in?" "Someone dumped it there." Indy, Sheriff Brody interrupted gently. "We believe within the last few hours emergency services are working to extract it as we speak. We need you to come identify it, and some items that may be recovered from inside Maurice's legs felt weak. After 7 years of nothing, of dead ends and false leads, this sudden development seems surreal. Did you find? We should discuss this on the way." Agent Kessler said. "It's about a 2-hour and 40-minute drive to Napa County. The extraction team hopes to have the camper out by the time we arrive. I need to change." Maurice's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Of course, but please as quickly as you can." She dressed mechanically, jeans, a sweater, tennis shoes. Her hands shook as she grabbed her purse and locked the door behind her. The black sedan waited in her driveway, engine running. As they pulled onto the empty highway, Agent Kessler turned from the passenger seat. "I know this is a shock. Mrs. Langford received a call around 2 a.m. from a maintenance worker at the dam. He was checking water levels after last night's storm and spotted something metallic lodged in the spillway." "The storm," Maurice repeated. Last night's thunderstorm had been fierce, rattling her windows and flooding the gutters. But how could someone? That spillway must be, 70 ft across. How do you dump a camper in that? That's what we're trying to figure out, Sheriff Brody said, glancing in the rearview mirror. Whoever did this knew the area well. They also knew the storm would create heavy water flow. We think they expected the camper to be crushed and swept through to the outlet, but it got stuck. Maurice said, "Lucky for us." Agent Kessler nodded. The angle the size of the camper, even with the water flow and storm last night, something prevented it from going all the way down. They drove in tense silence as the sky gradually lightened from black to deep purple. Moreau Rice watched the familiar Oregon landscape give way to Northern California's rolling hills. Her mind kept circling back to the impossibility of it all. Her father's vintage Airstream camper, the one he'd lovingly maintained for decades, somehow ending up in a dam spillway. As they approached Monticello Dam, Maurice saw the police barriers first. The normally busy Lake Beressa recreation area had been cordoned off. Patrol cars and emergency vehicles clustered near the spillway viewing area. The morning sun had just crested the hills, painting the water in shades of gold and green. And there it was. Maurice's breath caught. The aluminum camper sat on the roadside, water still dripping from its riveted surface. Even from a distance, she recognized the distinctive shape, the rounded edges her father had polished every spring. But 7 years had not been kind. Rust streaked the once gleaming surface, and the windows were clouded with grime. Agent Kessler helped her from the car. "Take your time, Mrs. Langford." As they approached, a man in a calla vest intercepted them. "Agent Kessler, I'm Dave Morrison, lead supervisor on the extraction." "Hell of a thing, getting that out of there. How did you manage it?" "Sheriff?" Brody asked. Morrison gestured to the massive crane, still positioned near the spillway hydraulic rig, and a lot of careful maneuvering. The thing was wedged at about a 20-degree angle, like someone just backed it right up to the edge and let it roll in. Storm water was still flowing, pretty heavy when we started. Could have gone real bad if it had shifted. Morris stepped closer to the camper. Even damaged and waterlogged, it was unmistakably her father's. She could see the small dent near the door handle where she'd backed into it with her bicycle when she was 12. "The forensics team has already done a preliminary search," Agent Kessler said gently. "Mrs. Langford, I need to tell you we didn't find any human remains inside." She nodded, unsure if that was relief or disappointment she felt. "But we did recover several items." He led her to a folding table where evidence bags were laid out. "We need you to identify these if you can." Maurice's legs nearly gave out when she saw the red sweater, even sealed in plastic. She recognized the purple embroidery on the sleeves, the one Lily had picked out herself at the craft store. "That's Lily's," she whispered. "And this?" Agent Kessler held up another bag containing a photograph. The image was water-damaged but still visible. Her father and Lily, standing in front of the camper, both grinning at the camera. Lily wore the same red sweater. Her blonde hair was let loose just how she liked it. Her father, or Lily's grandfather, had. His arm around her shoulders. Maurice's tears came, then hot and sudden. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to muffle the sob that escaped. "There's also this Sheriff Brody," showed her a digital camera in another evidence bag. "Do you recognize it?" Maurice wiped her eyes, studying the camera through the plastic number. "My father didn't use digital cameras. He was proud of his old film cameras. Always said digital had no soul, and these more bags, fishing gear, moldy blankets. The fishing tackle is his, those. Blankets too. My mother crocheted that edge pattern." Agent Kessler's expression was carefully neutral. "Mrs. Langford, I know we've discussed this possibility before, but with this evidence, your father's camper, his belongings, items belonging to Lily, we now have to consider that Thomas may have been involved in your daughter's disappearance." "He was 60 years old," Maurice said, her voice stronger now. "He's 67 now. If he's, how could he take care of a child alone? How could he hide for 7 years? It doesn't make sense. We've seen cases of elderly individuals doing unexpected things," Agent Kessler said gently. "I'm not saying we're certain, but we have to explore every possibility." The forensics tech approached them. We'll be collecting DNA and fingerprint samples, though the water damage is extensive between the storm and the spillway exposure. We're not optimistic about trace evidence. Maurice noticed news vans pulling up. Beyond the police barrier, reporters were already setting up cameras drawn by the spectacle of a camper pulled from the famous Monticello Dam spillway. Mrs. Langford, Agent Kessler, straightened his tie. I'm going to need to make a statement to the media. Would you like to say anything? She thought of her father, of the man who'd taught her to fish in that very camper, who'd spent countless hours with Lily fostering her confidence during Morris's long work hours. The man who'd never missed a birthday, never forgotten to call. When the cameras rolled, Agent Kessler delivered his statement with practiced precision. This morning we recovered significant evidence in the 2001 disappearance of Thomas Langford and his granddaughter, Lily Langford. The recovered camper is being classified as a primary crime scene combined with evidence discovered 2 days ago. We are optimistic about new leads in locating both missing persons. A reporter called out, "Is Thomas Langford considered a suspect? We're exploring all possibilities." Mr. Langford remains a person of interest, as he has throughout this investigation. They pushed Maurice forward. Then microphones thrust at her face. She tried to speak clearly, despite her tears. "Dad, if you're watching this, please, come home. Bring Lily back to me. We can still be a family. We can work through whatever happened." More questions came rapid fire, but Maurice felt herself breaking down. Sheriff Brody quickly guided her away from the cameras. "The camper is being transported to our forensics lab in Medford," Agent Kessler said as they walked back to the car. "We'll process everything thoroughly.